Колеги,
Greetings. We continue our working day. The topic of the next briefing: who undermines the political situation in the country? Our speakers are Serhiy Kunitsyn, head of the Ukrainian Union of Afghanistan veterans, and Evgen Davidey, the MP from the People's Front Party. Good afternoon, esteemed friends. Together with Evgen, we have come from the meeting of the Verkhovna Rada. Irina Mikhnyuk will join us, the head of the Union of the Families of those who were perished and who are missing in the ATO. We, first of all, would like to say that the situation is very complicated in the country. We know that we can criticize all the leaders of the state, the government, and the president and the Verkhovna Rada, where we are the MPs, but we believe that we have an external enemy, and we believe that the political forces which are now trying to disbalance the situation, they are organizing the tent camps. This is not for the benefit of Ukraine, but that is against what the state is doing, and these are the things which shouldn't be happening now, because we have so many problems now. We are trying together with the veterans of ATO and veterans of Afghanistan. Evgen Davidey was the commander of Kiev 1 battalion. He was wounded, a young guy, businessman, who went to fight for Ukraine. He has become the MP. I would like to say that we are not now divided into senior and younger veterans. We passed the social law supporting the veterans of ATO. As the deputy head of the Committee of the Parliament on Labor and Social Issues, I'm responsible for all the issues related to veterans, participants of ATO, veterans of ATO, the disabled persons, wounded persons, and during the 2 weeks when there were no plenary sessions, the whole package of laws which address the issues of assistance to the veterans of ATO and to families of those who perished and disabled passed at the committee, and we recommended the Verkhovna Rada to pass them. The first one was approved yesterday, this week, and next plenary weeks we will have the whole block of social draft laws. We are developing the work of the coordination center. We finish the all legal formalities for setting up the coordination council, and we are working very actively. Irina's here, and I would like to say that together with all these guys who have passed the warfare in Donbas, together we are trying to pass as many regulations as possible to improve the situation. At the meeting with the president of our faction, at the meeting with Mr. Poroshenko as the commander-in-chief, I raised the issue that from the new year the salaries for the guys who are defending the motherland is increased in the armed forces, in voluntary battalions, in the National Guard, in border troops and security service, so that all these servicemen receive good salaries, so that it's not lower than the salaries of newly formed police. It is impossible that the soldier who's at the front line and risks his life receives 5,000 and the policeman receives 10,000. That is wrong. So the president has given the instruction to our faction to improve the financial support for people who are defending Ukraine. together with Irina, we are working on the following. Every meeting she says that Article 15 of the law, we need to get back the privileges to the families of those who perished, participants of military warfare, the disabled, that's good, but there are people who lost the dearest in their lives, the husbands, the fathers, brothers, sons, and when the government deprives this category of people of privileges, this is wrong, and we are absolutely against disbalancing the boat. We are against politicians getting involved into such actions. We understand that fighting at the General Prosecution Office, this is all serious. It's now either we are defeated or we win. Think about what you are doing instead of getting united against common enemy. We are exploding ourselves from inside. Thank you. Good afternoon. You know, I would like to share my impressions of what I see, what's happening now. I would like to share the impressions as a person who was putting a first tent in Maidan. We put the first tent in Maidan. We called it the headquarters. After that, the tent camp started to be developed. And as a person who went to the front line as part of the very first battalion, Kiev 1, to the front line. People from Maidan went to the front line. I remember that first battle was Nikolaevka. After that we were at Slaviansk. We are the people who were at Maidan, at ATO, people who know and have known what they are fighting for. We are fighting for one independent Ukraine, free Ukraine. And what I am irritated by is by my colleagues who do not even understand, do not know what Maidan is, what ATO is. That's not ATO, that's the war. Let's talk about facts. They shout louder than anyone, but Maidan and ATO servicemen were standing for certain values. How can you shout? The people who have never been there, I believe that every one of them will have to answer for covering themselves by Maidan or by ATO. Let's go back to our objective. Our objective was, when we were going to Maidan, to create Ukraine a strong country. We are trying to do that. We are moving forward to that. And those people who are trying to disbalance the situation, on the one hand, that's freedom of speech. We were fighting for that, but now it's either about independent and strong country or the freedom of speech of populists and subversive activists who are trying to disbalance the situation in the country. We need to understand that if we continue doing it, if we continue to disbalance the country, we will lose everything. We will lose the country, we will lose the hope of people who lost their sons, their relatives, their houses in Donbas during Maidan. And the hope that the death of those people was not in vain. We don't even want to think about that, because in last years, what we've seen in life, it's difficult to recollect it, and it's more difficult to think that it was all in vain. All these Syuda Maidan activists and Syuda ATO activists, those who shout louder than anyone else, they will think about those people who were really doing it for the sake of creating and building a new, strong, independent country. And good afternoon to everyone. As always, it's very difficult for me to talk about these things. I'm not a politician, but during this election campaign I talk to people a lot. There's no secret for anyone. I wanted to become a member of Kiev city administration, seeing all the problems. I look differently now at many things. I see these poor elderly people, grandmothers, grandfathers. What impressed me, what I was impressed with young people who do not care. What can I say? I'm against disbalancing the country. We have not finished the war, the external war. We started another war inside the country. When my husband went from Maidan to the front, he said, Ira, we first need to stabilize situation there and then we will work here. It's not about just authorities, it's not just about politicians. The most expensive thing, the most dear thing is the human life. I believe that most people, maybe fortunately or unfortunately, do not understand what it means to lose your dear one. They do not understand all this emptiness that our families survive through. This is no secret that about 5,000, maybe even more, and these are the families that lost their dear ones, relatives, and the price we paid is too high. I am telling all politicians, before you make a single step, get people around you, ask a question. Are you responsible for preserving their lives? Of course, there might be accidents, but the things which could be prevented, the deaths, the families of those perished, for them, those people who gather other people around them are responsible. We need to learn how to work with any authorities. We need to learn how to force authorities work for the sake of the people, for the benefit of people. That is the most important objective. We were selecting it. We will continue to select it. And those who did not go to elections, let it be on them. Our objective now, our goal is to make Ukraine a peaceful, integrated single country. I am against any military actions, especially on the territory of Ukraine. There is the zone of military actions, it's limited. Thank God it's limited. We shouldn't give a single chance to disbalance the situation inside the country. Every one of us has to think about what actions do we make. Everyone should ask himself or herself, what are you doing now for peace and for integrity of our country? Thank you, Irina. Thank you, Serhiy. Now let's proceed with questions. Georgians of Maidan, Livan. My question is to Serhiy. The Georgians of Maidan, there was a platoon of Georgians in Maidan They were part of 2,800. Out of them, almost half were or are in ATO zone. Myself as well. For almost a year I was in the battalion 2950, Aidar. I have returned recently. All those Georgians who are thinking of Ukraine and who are fighting for territorial integrity of Ukraine, and me as well, when I see such situation, we request don't do that, don't disbalance the country. And I would like to ask you, yesterday the Verkhovna Rada passed the law on participants of ATO. Some of our warriors have the residence permit. We have a certificate. I'm temporarily on here on vacation. Well, I will go back soon, but it was said that volunteers who are not citizens of Ukraine will be receiving the ATO certificate, but I cannot get it. I don't understand who issues such certificate. No one of Georgian platoon, no one has such a certificate. Those who have the residence permit and those who don't have residence permit, can they get it? Will you help in that? Okay. I can tell that we have passed the law on simplified procedure of getting citizenship for those who were fighting for Ukraine. It was passed in the first reading already. The president has recently told us, MPs, that we are to ready give citizenship to those who were fighting for Ukraine, to people like you. There's no category participant of ATO. According to the law, there are four participants. Participant of war, talking about Great Patriotic War, those who were in the rear, participant of military actions, disabled person and families of perished. There's no certificate, there's no status of participant of ATO. All received the certificate of participant of military actions. There's no such certificate, there's no such status. If you give me a list and documents of your Georgian friends, together with Irina, especially because you served in Aidar and Oleg Mikhnyuk was fighting in Aidar, and all these Afghan veterans were there. Myself as the people's deputy, I will be ready even to go to the president to speed up for you getting the citizenship in the nearest future. We'll get the signatures of the MPs. 10, 20, 30. Give the documents and give the names. Thank you. The next question. 1+1 TSN Тиждень. The topic of press conference is who is disbalancing situation in the country. You and your colleagues did not say that. The question is who? Give us the names and facts. Who disbalances the situation in the country? Let's come to an agreement. I'm not you are not the prosecutor. I am not the person who's investigated. Don't state that. Don't you know who? Look at who's at the cabinet of ministers. Look at what parties are there, what photographs, what political parties, Serhiy, Kaplin, Leshko. Do I need to name them? Every journalist knows that. Together with Serhiy Kaplin, We are in the same political force, we are in the same committee, but I do not support what's being done, because I believe that we need to understand that by such actions we do not improve the situation, we disbalance it. Or don't you know who called upon, who said that if I'm not recognized as a person who is in the second tour, then Maidan will show you everything. We have weapons, we have armaments. Look at the interview. We understand who's behind that. There's no need to decipher that. All knows the political leaders and political parties. If I knew that, I wouldn't come to you to the briefing, which is called Who Disbalances the Situation in the Country. Please give the names and facts. I told you. Which facts? There's the 10th camp. Of what parties we know, what leaders we know. What else? Don't you understand who? I'm not the prosecutor. All the journalists know who is behind which political party and who funds who. That's no problem. Is that your final answer? You're not ready to give the names and facts. I told you, Leshko party, the topic of your presentation, and you don't name anyone. Don't provoke me. Don't you understand which parties are behind? Don't you know? Go and have a look. There are photographs. There are names of parties there. Don't you know which parties are doing it? What topic? I understand what you are oriented towards, but I can tell you that our political position, she's not a politician. Dede is not a politician. When the war is going on, to disbalance the situation is a crime. But who? Is it a secret? Or do they wear balaclavas? Don't you understand who? Okay? Which are political forces? They disbalance. 3 political parties. This is becoming a discussion. Thank you for coming and see you again. Our next briefing